The Expanded University, imaginative and boundless. Welcome everyone to the inaugural edition of Expanded University Short Courses. I have with me, the only person I could have with me for the first installment, Matt Wilkins. How's it going, Matt?
Yeah, it's going good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and your YouTube channel is?
YouTube channel is just Matt Wilkins because I created it back in the early 2000s when I wasn't that creative.
And I notice your last name, the W is always lowercase, and I find that hilarious.
Well, yeah, that's because it was back in the day and YouTube wasn't that big a thing. You just type in your name, and that
I wish I'd started back then. That would have been awesome.
It's boring. You just popped up stupid videos of yourself or whatever every once in a while. So it's crazy how it's changed and grown.
Well, and you have a website, right?
Yeah, well, theexpandeduniverse.com.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Awesome website. I have some articles on there. A lot of people do. There's a lot of videos and lore and everything else. So
and starting 1st of February, Ryder Wenham will have some Ryder Wenham article up there.
Really?
From him. Yeah. He had sent me something a long time ago, back when I was saying I was going to have a website, and he sent me something, so I'm going to post that. And then he also sent me the alternate comic strip proposal for the Applejacks droids comic strip on the back of an Applejacks cereal box. He drew it out, the rough draft, so everyone will get to see what the alternate droids comic strip for Applejacks was going to be, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's a piece of history right there, and that's awesome. You're going to get that.
It's nothing, that's just amazing or, continuity binding. It's just a neat little treasure trove that I don't think anyone ever knew about. And I don't think he even thought it was that big of a deal when he sent it to me.
Well, and he's not just a reference book guy. That's how a lot of people probably think of him, because he did do a lot of reference books, but he did a lot of prose too. Like, didn't he do a lot of the young adult novels and stuff?
He did a lot of the exclusive Scholastic membership stuff. He did what is it? The Clone Wars, is it Breakout Squadron?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
He did Han Solo in Hyperspace. So he was more of a Dark Horse comics and Scholastic guy. But honestly, and he did the Darth Vader story and the Darth Vader magazine.
Oh, the Life and Legend of Obi-Wan, I think.
No. Well, yeah, he did those too. But I'm talking about the I can't remember what it was called now, but it was for that Darth Vader Star Wars magazine special edition. He wrote a story for them, and really great guy, fun to talk to, easygoing, knows Star Wars and does his homework. I highly suggest you go to StarWarsTimeline.net and not only read the third unpublished novel of Adventures in Hyperspace, but then read the afterword where Ryder Wenham tells you all the study he made and the EU connections he put in to a children's novel. It's amazing the amount of effort that went in. I mean, when you make a children's book, you shouldn't think that hard into it. You know what I'm saying? But he made sure it tied into everything because he knew adults were going to be reading the children's books as well. And so he wanted to make sure it was something they could enjoy as well. Name another author that cares that much about Star Wars in the new canon. Name one, please, someone. Tell me one that cares that much. I don't know of anyone that cares that much. All right.
Yeah,
Chuck Wendick can write a book in 30 days.
Yeah. Oh, and I heard that rumor. I think we've talked about this on live streams before. That rumor that Michael A. Stackpole wrote I, Jedi in 18 days. The actual blurb inside the jacket says within a month, but I remember seeing an interview that says 18 days. But hell,
it sucks.
Oh no. We'll fight about that one. But the new authors of Disney continuity, they're too busy worrying about writing on menstruation and all that other weird stuff that they include in their books. So they're too busy with that to worry about continuity and lore and all that stuff. But one more question before we kind of get to the topic here. Have you ever talked to Bill Slavicsek from West End Games?
No, but I hear he's a nice guy.
Well, he emailed me back because one of my first expanded university videos was on when did we actually start calling it expanded universe.
Right.
And kind of as a proper noun. And I emailed him and asked him like, hey, do you remember? And he replied saying, yeah, not really, but I knew by this date we were. And I'm like, well, yeah, I kind of knew that, but thanks for replying. But yeah, very nice guy. Surprised he replied and all that stuff. So he would be someone awesome to talk to. And Bill Smith, these guys know a lot about Star Wars.
Yeah, they were the early pioneers in source books.
Yep, absolutely. And Greg Gordon did a lot of the stuff back then, like the Imperial source book, and just created a lot of lore that Timothy Zahn started using, and then everyone started using.
I was going to say they predate Timothy Zahn.
Yeah, and I think they made it consistent with what we're going to talk about today, which is the Han Solo adventures, aka the original Han Solo trilogy. They really made it consistent with that. So that's what we're going to talk about. Han Solo at Star's End, Han Solo's Revenge, and Han Solo and the Lost Legacy. Let me ask you this, man.
Yes.
How old were you when you first read these? How did you find out about them? Were they the first ones you found out about? Stuff like that. And I'll tell you after you're done how I did.
Yes. The very first Star Wars Expanded Universe I got exposed to was on the same day back in the mid 80s. I was playing with a friend of mine. We were in her brothers had a little clubhouse built into a tree, and it was really nice because their father is a carpenter, construction worker. So they had a nice little shed slash cut. It was a shed, but it was built around a tree and kind of had a second level. And up there were some Marvel comic books, the old school Marvel ones. And it was in the middle of some adventure. I don't remember what issue it was, but I picked it up, looked at it, and went, what's this? And they said, it's the adventures of what happened after Star Wars. And I was like, shut up. And I was like, well, where's the first book? Where's this? He said, well, I only have these issues. I was like, well, I'm not going to read in the middle of a story. And then later on, he showed me which is the orange cover.
That's Revenge, the second book.
He showed me Han Solo's Revenge, the hardback, I believe. And he was reading that too. I was like, oh, and I said, can I borrow this and read it? He said, yeah. I said, is this what happens to Han Solo after, Star Wars? He goes, well, no, this is before New Hope, before Star Wars. We used to call New Hope Star Wars back then.
Yeah, we did. Yep.
Star Wars, Empire, and Return of the Jedi. He goes, no, it was before Star Wars. And I was like, why would, and I remember saying this, why would you care about what happened before Star Wars? And so as a kid, I was like, no, I'd rather read the comic books. I want to hear what happens afterwards. And so that's when I found out about them. Now, when I read them, it was probably late 90s because Del Rey had already reprinted these. And, back when the Bantam books were really big.
Yep.
I was waiting for the next Bantam book. I couldn't wait any longer. I was like, I got to read something. And those Del Rey reprints were a dime a dozen. The Tales of Lando, the Lando Calrissian trilogy, the Han Solo trilogy, and the Alan Dean Foster Split in the Mind's Eye. So I went ahead and just bought all three of those at Walden Books. You could get them for like what, $4.99, the paperbacks.
Yep.
And I bought all three and just said, I'll read this in the meantime. Now, I had held off buying those because at the time they had not been established in the canon, right? Bantam wasn't referencing them. They weren't part of Bantam's timeline at the time. And so you really didn't know if they took place in the actual timeline with Thrawn and whatnot. But because they all took place before, or most of them took place prior to Star Wars, they all fit completely in the continuity.
Yep.
Which after reading that, I was like, oh, well, these can fit. So why not keep them? And I told this story when we had Rilla Smith on, when you had Rilla Smith on, which, by the way, is the highlight of 2021. I should say.
Oh, yeah, she was awesome. And so was her mother.
I love everything about that stream with you guys. And the Lando Calrissian trilogy was the first one I read because it was the least one I was interested in. and it actually ended up being my favorite. But Brian Daley was the second book I read, and it was a 3-in-1, Del Rey paperback I read. I now have them all in hardback, the original printings. But I remember opening up and wow, Brian Daley. I love A.C. Crispin. I know people sing praises to A.C. Crispin's Han Solo trilogy, and they should. But the unsung hero of Han Solo has to be Brian Daley. He does it. Everyone seems to forget him. When you say Han Solo trilogy, a lot of people I've noticed talk about A.C. Crispin, which is fine. Like I said, great trilogy. But have they tried Brian Daley? Oh, no, I haven't read that one yet. Well, read that one and come back and see me, because I think both are excellent, but I like Brian Daley's better. It's a grittier, darker, Han Solo shot first type story. And oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think I know why they feel that way, and we'll get into that.
Okay.
But yeah, let me tell you how I discovered them. So we used to have a grocery store chain on the West Coast called Fry's. I think it's still there. It's owned by Kroger now.
Okay, and that's I know about it. We don't have them here.
Yeah. It's not the electronics store, which I always thought was weird. But anyway, Fry's grocery store. We would go there, my family. And you know how all those grocery stores will have like magazines and books sometimes, like on a turnstile type thing. In 83, I went and I saw Lando Calrissian and the Flame Wind of Ocean on the rack. And I'm like, I need this, because Return of the Jedi, I was 7 years old. It was huge. Like, I was into it. Like, I think basically my parents stopped buying me Star Wars stuff because they thought I was becoming too obsessed with it. So wanted the book, and my mother tells me, oh, you're not going to read that because you're 7 years old. So I didn't get it. And I was not happy about it. That was the only one they had. The other two they didn't have on the rack yet. So didn't get them. Well, then years later, we went to Disneyland. We went to Star Tours. There was a gift shop at the end, and they had Star Wars, the role-playing game, and bought it. Great book, read the whole rules, and I'm like, man, I'm going to start playing this. I think 2 years later I did, with about 4 guys. But the point is, there's a bibliography in this source book that was like the second hardback that West End came out with. And in this bibliography, they had the Lando trilogy. I'm like, hey, look, there are those books that I used to see in the grocery store. But they also had listed these Han Solo books. And I'm like, what are those? Right? So within a week, I go to the library. They have in hardback Han Solo at Star's End. So I tell my mother, like, I'm going to check this out and never take it back. And we'll just like pay the library, like, we lost it. Here's the money. And she's like, no, you can't do that. So she didn't let me do that, which, was kind of hilarious. So then we hit up a few different used bookstores. And if I look in this copy, it still has the stamp Harvard Used Bookstore in Stockton, California. So that's where I got my paperback of Star's End. Then I found Revenge and Lost Legacy. When it comes to Lando ones, I found Star Cave first. I went ahead and read it. I didn't care that it was the last one. It's like I wanted Star Wars.
You had to read it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how I found these books, read them, and they were amazing because, and here's what we'll circle back to. Like you said, the dark and gritty stuff, they feel authentic because I feel like the less the author knew about Star Wars, the more he had to tread carefully, if that makes sense. The more he had to make the character of Han and the characters, I should say, of Han and Chewie fit with what he saw in the movies. And the first one was written, I doubt he had seen much of Empire. They might have shared some notes and stuff like that. Probably not. But point is, you read the voice of Han and stuff and his characterization in Star's End, published in spring of 1979, a year before Empire, and it's spot on. So it's like a very retro feel like it fits with the time, and that's why I think they're so endearing, and I never get tired of them. Does that make sense?
No, I agree completely. And wait till you see the Hungarian Han Solo books that are being
Yeah, I did a video
translated.
on that a year and a half ago. Yep.
Right. Did you read the first one?
Mm-mm. I
Okay.
didn't know it was out.
Well, it's not official yet, but
Oh, I know.
I got a copy to review of digital, and a long time ago, and I read it, and the guy who does it, he's not Brian Daley, but it's pretty good. It's in the feel of those Brian Daley books. Like if you know, oh, you do know comic books. What I'm talking about. You know how
Yeah.
Greg Capullo can draw like Todd McFarlane, but he isn't Todd McFarlane,
Right.
but he can draw like Todd McFarlane. That's exactly
Nice.
what this book feels like. It feels like a guy is writing in Brian Daley style. It reads well. It's not Brian Daley, but it still is good, and it feels like it's part of the continuation of the Han Solo book. So I think those are going to be very popular when those eventually get released on Joe's site, Star Wars Timeline. But I agree with you completely with what you said. Those books have a nice, again, if Brian Daley is looking at Star Wars saying, well, if Han Solo shot first, he's a cold mother effer, right? He don't
Yeah.
care. So that's why, and I don't know if we're going to be breaking down each one of these books or just talking about our favorite scenes, but that's why there's one of your favorite scenes, an airlock.
See, I have that down as a note, but first I'm going to bring this one up.
No,
One of my other
please go ahead.
notes.
I don't want to skip ahead, so go ahead.
Well, one of my other notes that you just said, there's that line. I happen to like to shoot first, reckon, as opposed to
Yes.
shooting second. Now, I've always said it's not Han shot first, it's Greedo never fired. But, the sentiments there. Isn't that hilarious that you could go back and find that in the book and apply it to the 1997 special edition of A New Hope? It's
No.
just hilarious. What a great
Yeah.
line.
It's a great line. There's a lot of good scenes. In fact, I'll be honest. Reading that, I think I said this once. I can remember where I was a lot of times when I was reading these books, and I
Me
remember
too.
I finished the Han Solo trilogy. It was a 3-in-1 for me back then, and I finished that book. I sat underneath a tree in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My buddy had just was graduating college and was interviewing for jobs, and there was some plant. I don't remember what type of plant it was, but he was going to work at the plant maybe, or he was interviewing for a job. He said, "Will you be okay just sitting outside? I don't think they'll let you in unless you have an interview." I said, "Oh, dude, I'm just going to read underneath this tree." And he was gone for a very long. Supposedly, there was a long wait. The interview went over and whatnot, and he apologized to me. But the thing was, I sat there and was so engrossed in that book, I didn't even notice time had gone by. And the moment I finished it, I looked up and there he was walking up to me. It was perfect timing. But I was just
Wow.
so excited. I said, I cannot. I said, would you mind if I talk to you about this book? He said, sure. I said, because I got to talk to someone. I just thought it was just so amazing. And there's so many moments. Are we going to talk about the airlock scene
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
airlock
because
scene,
that's one of my notes. Yeah.
it's got to be one of the most underrated. It's underrated because not many people know about this. There is a kick-ass scene in this where there's a slaver. He's despicable. He's a despicable villain,
You're talking
right?
about the second book, right?
Is it the second book that's
That's the
in?
second one.
Okay,
Yep.
I get
But
these.
the airlock scene, the spacing scene,
Yeah.
is in the first book.
Okay, so
Because
who is that guy then? I thought he was a slaver.
so that was Torm. So he was supposed to be Reckon, the black guy's assistant, but he was
Okay.
actually like a double agent. So what happened was Han knew that there was a traitor because they were heading to Star's End, and he knew one of them was a traitor because Reckon was murdered. So what Han did was, and this is a brilliant ploy, um, he said, "Okay, everyone, I'm going to lock you into a different room, and you're going to write down the coordinates to where we're going." And
Right.
Reckon had scrawled them onto the hollow table before he died. So Torm was the only one whose coordinates were correct, so Han knew he was the killer. He ran into an airlock, and then he released him while they were in hyperspace.
Yes.
Don't forget that part. So,
but doesn't he? And again, it's been a while, and then here's the problem with reading the 3-in-1. I get those I get the books mixed up.
Yep.
Even though there's totally separate adventures, just because I read them all together, I get which book happened when, or what events happened when. But doesn't he say? He says, "I'll change, Solo," or something. He begs for his life, say, "I'll change," and he goes, "No, you won't," and hits the airlock.
Yep.
I mean, you're like, "Whoa!" Because at first you think, "Oh, he's going to bargain his way out of this," and maybe it's always where the villain kills themselves or does something by accident that causes their own death, these days. But no. Stone cold Han Solo hit that airlock button. I just thought was great. Spaced him. And it really, there is not another scene that really compares with just how, and to be honest, it fits within the expanded universe, because if you're thinking Han Solo would never do that, back in the day when he didn't trust no one but Chewie, yes, he would. Yes, he would. I agree. He's a changed man after Return of the Jedi, and his actions would not be what they were back then. He was angrier. He was younger. He was a loner.
Yep.
And so, in my opinion, those Brian Daley books fit perfectly with Han Solo's character all throughout the expanded universe, because Han is like that before he meets Luke and Leia and everyone.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So it fit. His character is not, I mean, it is different. It's a little bit a darker, more jaded, more shaded character, but that's because this is before he met friends, before he met people he could trust. It's really good. It's done really well. That's what's some other scenes you have, and I'm curious to what else you highlighted.
One thing I want to mention, and this is interesting, because I have the 3 paperbacks sitting in front of me, and then I also have another book I'll bring up later. But notice they don't say Star Wars on them. They had kind of the Star Wars font, Han Solo, blah blah blah.
They just say Han Solo.
But then they do have From the Adventures of Luke Skywalker, based on the characters and situations created by George Lucas. And so does Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Don't forget, it doesn't say Star Wars on it either. Now, the re-releases do, but the originals did not say Star Wars on them. And I find that to be an interesting marketing choice. Maybe they had a reason they couldn't, but very interesting. So that's why I think they made the art so prominent. Like the first book, the art is by Wayne Barlow. Do you know who that is?
Wayne Barlow?
Do you remember going to like bookstores and you would see this guide to extraterrestrials, like full color art and all these weird aliens?
Okay. Guy, is that the same guy?
Same guy.
Okay.
Yep.
I can see that in the art style now.
Yep.
And we should say this is very 70s sci-fi art style too.
Yes. But yeah, prominent Han and Chewie on the front, and then the double worlds behind them. It's like, this is Star Wars, even though it doesn't have, Star Wars on the front.
I love those covers, by the way.
Oh, they're awesome. And then I love the back. Like, it's a typical science fiction novel, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. Like, Danger at Star's End. And it has like 4 paragraphs. Like, it's perfect,
It is. Really is. And that you have people like Zim the Despot, his lore is introduced here.
Yep.
You have Galandro, Quickest Draw. That's in the final book, correct?
He's in the second and final book.
The showdown.
The showdown is in the last one, yeah.
Yeah, he's the quickest draw in the galaxy. Can Han be? I mean, it's great. It's great stuff. And now that I'm thinking about it, the only connection, besides James Luceno's nod to Brian Daley in the New Jedi Order, the only true connection to those books was Kevin J. Anderson's Young Jedi Knights.
Yes, because of Anja.
The last story arc had Galandro's daughter seeking revenge on Han Solo. And when they finally revealed that, I can't remember which book that was. It may have been the first part of that 3-part series. Either way, I almost fell out of my chair because I was not expecting them to make a connection to the Brian Daley books because no one ever had.
Right.
And
yeah, I remember reading that. Yeah.
Kevin J. Anderson, I mean, he doesn't get in. I know people don't like his writing that much, but you can't deny this man brought together the expanded universe as we know it. I mean, he's the one that opened the door for the comic books and said, come on in. Timothy Zahn didn't want to do it.
No.
Kevin J. Anderson did. Kevin J. Anderson wanted to tie in the Marvel comic books. He was putting old Marvel comic book references in his books way before I could get it. Quirrell from the very first series, he's a TIE fighter pilot that was in the day after the Death Star
he crashed. Yes.
And the thing is, I never knew that. But Kevin J. Anderson was already saying, yeah, we're going to connect Marvel comic books, even though no one doesn't want to right now. We're going to go ahead and connect Brian Daley because no one's done it. Oh, we'll bring him in. Don't be shy. Come on, let's do this. And he pulled in so many stories that everyone else just kind of largely ignored. But it's wonderful stuff to see that there was at least, and I mean, I am surprised that James Luceno didn't bring more. I mean, all he did was that one little comment in New Jet Order where Han Solo confuses a droid for bullocks.
Well, no, he did more than that because.
Oh, was there something else I may have forgotten? Go ahead.
Because he brings Roa in. Remember Roa?
Oh, never mind. You're right.
That was a whole storyline because the Vong had killed Lawil, his wife, and then he was on a mission for revenge and stuff.
So that was right. Cool. I forgot about that. You're correct.
Very cool. Very, very, very honorable, to do that for his friend. And together they wrote as Jack McKinney the Robotech novels.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, Brian Daley and James Luceno together were Jack McKinney. And they wrote many Robotech novels. I think they basically novelized the Macross saga, if you know what that is.
Okay, no, I don't, but that's pretty cool that they're together on that.
Absolutely.
I also want to talk about humor. There is humor in this. There's moments that are make you laugh. And Bullocks and Blue Max are. It's a pity that no one knows. A lot of people don't know who they are. Because they're great.
You're exactly right.
They're great droid companion. There's one, I can't remember which book it's in, but Blue Max swears. And Han gets on to say, hey, he goes, but Captain Solo, you say that every time you can't fix the whatever. He goes,
yeah, like a little kid.
Yeah, he goes, it's different.
Yeah, like a little kid.
Yeah, like a little kid. He's like, oh, what's going on there? And
but let's
go ahead.
I was going to say, let's talk about Bollocks.
Please,
because you know what they had to do in the UK, right?
They had to change his name, right?
Yes, to Zolix.
Bollocks means something else.
Yeah, because if you've ever seen Gordon Ramsay, you know that it's a curse in England. So, Bollocks.
So they couldn't call him Bollocks.
That's fantastic. Yes, but in this book, I really liked how in Star's End, the first one, there was a lot of tension all throughout the book. It's like, okay, first Reckon's dead and he has to find out who it is. And he uses this Sherlock Holmes trick to find out. Then they get to Star's End, and are they going to get in posing as like the entertainment troupe? And then they're in. And then he's kind of racing the clock because remember, they make Bollocks fight that gladiator droid and he's going to get destroyed. So like he's trying to sneak into the control center with Blue Max to like set the self-destruct. But Blue Max is like, we have to go rescue him. And he's like, no, this is more important. And then he makes them finally do it and stuff. So there's tension all throughout. And are they going to get out? Because now an authority ship shows up with a bunch of troops and stuff. They did a really good job of just constantly building tension. And I think it made the book go by really fast, but in a good way. Now, here's a scene you'll like. Another moment. Remember what happens to Vice Prex Herkin at the end when he dies? Who kills him?
Remind me.
His own wife, because he was about to like try and escape without her. Mm-hmm. And Han's like, no, you're not getting on board. And then she shoots him in the back because he was going to leave her there.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, you got to reread this.
Yeah, I need to reread that because I remember the character, but I don't remember his death, so I'd forgotten about that. But the thing is, and I am going to reread it. I am going to reread it. But Brian Daley, there's a different edge to these books for EU fans. I notice a lot of EU fans don't read these. They kind of skip over them because they're not referenced. They are a part of the official canon with Legends. Yep. But a lot of people who I've noticed, just, this stuff's not something that's high on their radar. And if you're thinking it's because, well, I think these are dated. No, they're not
That's
dated.
That's a plus for me.
Yeah, they're not dated. Well, for me too, but they're actually done really well. And I would highly suggest people give them a shot because what Brian Daley does in this one, it gives you the hard-hitting Han Solo you want. It's got a little bit more grit to it. It's a great feel. The writing to me, Tim, honestly doesn't feel that dated.
No, it's fantastic.
Yeah, we've talked about this. I'm glad we picked this one because we talked about the Lando Calrissian trilogy a little bit together. We talked about the good things about it. And,
yep.
And to be fair, the average fan will tell you out of those 3 Del Rey, novels predating, the official formation of the expanded universe.
Yep.
They would probably tell you Brian Daley's is the best. And I won't argue with anyone who loves Brian Daley more because I think those are excellent. That's an excellent trilogy. But it's kind of wild that whenever I say the Han Solo trilogy, everyone automatically thinks A.C. Crispin.
Exactly.
Do you have that same experience? Or is it just me?
Yeah, definitely. That's why I call these, as they do on like the book that you have, the Han Solo Adventures, to differentiate them. That's what I call these. And then because literally on the cover of A.C. Crispin's, it says Han Solo Trilogy, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I differentiate them.
Okay.
But check this out. So Daley was told no Empire, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
He was given restrictions too, just like L. Neil Smith was.
Yep. So no Empire. So he comes up with Corporate Sector, which I thought it was brilliant because it's different enough, right? It's different enough, but it's kind of worse in a lot of ways. Because what's worse than a crony capitalist society where we pretend to be capitalists, but really we pick the winners, and it's good old boy networks and all that stuff. And I love, instead of stormtroopers, he gave the security police a name, the S-pose, just to make them kind of like stormtroopers, these faceless bad guy troopers. Just amazing. But he did sneak a few references in, because if you'll remember, in Star's End, when they show up as posing as the entertainment troupe, they were sent by the Imperial Entertainers Guild. So he was able to sneak that in.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's funny. And I mean, it's fine. To be honest, I think it makes the books better because I don't want another Empire.
Yep.
As the villain, the generic villain that you always have. And how tempting would it have been back then for them to include the Empire? Nothing would have stopped them if he would have wanted to do it. But I'm glad he had to get creative and come up with a different villain. Lucasfilm did that because obviously they didn't know where George was going to go with the formation of the Empire, what was going to be said about him and whatnot. I get that, but I also think that it's great. It's a great, like it seems like whenever restrictions are put on an author about what they can and can't do, it forces that author more creative, and we see a better product. Case in point, the Vong. What was George Lucas said no to Sith. And so they're like, okay, well, then we'll just create the Vong. And that's so much better than if it would have been Sith. So much better because we've seen Sith and Jedi a million times. Let's see something different. Vong was something we hadn't seen. Bravo marched for creativity. Well, L. Neil Smith, we both talked about this with Rilla, what, roadblocks he had put in front of him. And he came up with something that was uber creative. Brian Daley faces those same barricades and maneuvers around them like a pro, and it makes the story interesting.
Yes, it
It's on a
does.
smaller scale. The galaxy isn't at a threat, not even the universe, one sector is what's in trouble. One planet, one town, one person controlling
Yep.
something, going after riches. It's a true sci-fi adventure. It's
Yep.
got everything you'll want in it. It's got danger, suspense, comedy. It's great.
I want to talk about one more thing from this
Yeah,
book, and then I want to talk about a theme for all three, and then we can kind of move on to the second
sure.
book. So I loved Han in a starfighter. Remember when he gets to the outlaw tech base, they get attacked, and
Yes.
it's like, oh, we got to defend the place. So we're gonna get in Z95s. I believe the first appearance of
Mm-hmm.
Z95s, and then
Z95s are
yep,
created there, which were a big part of the expanded universe going
yep.
forward.
And they first revealed the way those looked in, I think, the Rebel Alliance source book.
Yeah, one
And
of the
they're
early
pretty
ones.
much, yeah, they're pretty much just like prototypes for the X-Wing, kind of like the precursor to the X-Wing. Yep.
And I really loved that they went that way because it makes sense that something that took place years earlier would eventually that design would eventually get improved upon.
Yes.
It looks similar but different, and I like that.
Yeah, really, really cool though. Thinking of Han and a starfighter, something we never got to see in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then here are two themes. Okay, the first one, if you don't notice this until you really notice it, if that makes sense, but all three books start out with this wacky action sequence that may or may not really be connected to the rest of the plot, just like to make it more realistic. Like, hey, this is Han and Chewie, and this is what happens to them. All three of
Yeah,
them, because he deals with Pluvu 2 for 1 at the beginning of Star's End. He was kind of like the Jabba before Jabba, you know, for Han Solo, and then Revenge. Uh, the little thing with the aliens where they're showing them movies and stuff like that to try and make money. And
yeah,
then they had created a cult around it, and they changed the movie and they flipped out. And then, of course, in Lost Legacy, there's like that, like he's like in some kind of show where he lands a ship and a bunch of stuff like that. So pretty cool that, each book starts out with a sort of unconnected action sequence because it's Han and Chewie, it's Star Wars, you got to have action. The other theme is in all three books, the girl of the week. So
right.
now, what's unique about Star's End with Jessa, Doc's daughter?
Mm-hmm.
He gets laid confirmed. I mean, at the end of the book, I mean, really. The other two, it's like, no, I don't think it happened. But in this one, 100%, because if you go to that last page, they make it clear where they're heading. So
Yeah.
he gets he gets the
Dr.
girl.
Boots,
So
it's okay. This is pre-Princess Leia. Han Solo has had his fair share of women in the past. We
yep.
know this.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't his first time around the block by then. He is a learned male, but
Yep.
yeah.
Now, one more thing actually about this book. It's the only one, I believe, that was adapted to comics. And it was in the newspaper strips.
Yeah. And I was gonna ask because I never got the comic book version,
Me
but
neither.
uh, they never finished that, right?
They didn't finish the other two books. They finished Star's End.
Why not?
I have no idea. I know that originally they were going to cancel the newspaper strip, but like a
Mhm.
fan letter writing campaign
Okay.
brought them back. So
That's
they
odd
did,
though.
yeah, they did change some stuff. Like
They had to
his,
just for time's
well,
sake.
yeah, his wife, Herkin's wife, didn't kill him. His bodyguard, that reptilian Ulrashan, he
Hmm.
killed him in the comic book. Maybe they thought a wife killing her husband was too much for comics or
Well,
something.
and it's exactly why I don't get the comic book version of the novels because it's short. I mean, people say, "Oh, but I love it because it's visual." And I get that, but it's a shorter vision. It's a shorter story. I
Yeah.
think it cuts out so much depth from the story, and there's nothing you can tell a great comic book story, but adapting that into a graphic novel, unless you're going to spend tons of time, deliberating over scenes and have a big omnibus, there's just no point in doing it.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
So the next, like the Thrawn ones, those are terrible comics. Have you, the art alone?
I never even got them. I never even bothered. Everyone was so excited when those were coming out. They said, "Are you getting them?" No, I'm not getting those books. I'm not getting those comic books.
Terrible.
Yeah, not a
So
fan.
the second book, Han Solo's Revenge, came out later on in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, the cover art's by Dean Ellis. He is a science fiction cover artist extraordinaire. Like, sometime go Google his name. I love looking at retro sci-fi art. Like, I follow a bunch of pages on social media that have all that stuff. But yeah, he's fantastic. And this book, another adventure where, okay, he gets hired to haul some slaves, and he's like, no, we don't do slaves. And they take out the slavers, and then Fiola, the next girl of the week, she winds up being an agent for the authority, and they have to try and track down the slavers because she basically says, I'll turn you in if you don't help me, and all that stuff. So they go on an adventure to do that, and then he never gets to nail her, but you can tell he likes her based on some of Brian Daley's narrative and dialogue. But yeah, it was a fun book, and again, a lot of lore established in this one. Like, you get Galandro. And you know what else they established in this? They really don't talk a lot about Han in any of these books, like his parents, anything like that. But they do reveal that he once raced swoops professionally. They do have a line on that whenever they're in that swoop chase when she's on the back of the bike and stuff. Do you remember that scene?
Yes, I remember about swoop. I remember about swoop bikes being in it, but I don't remember that much about it.
Yeah, but there is a throwaway line saying, he once raced them professionally, whatever. So,
the Dengar.
They don't mention Dengar, but
history. You know what? Now you're making me think about it. Do you think? No, I don't have to think. They did that on purpose. That's a continuity tie-in.
Absolutely, it is.
Han Solo's past. I just now realized that.
Yes, absolutely, it is.
How smart is that? Who wrote Dengar's short story and tells the bounty hunters? Good on them.
Well, but it was before that. It didn't, because it was in Galaxy Guide 3 Empire Strikes Back. That's where they first revealed the Dengar swoop.
The Dengar, but putting it in story form and kind of streamlining it.
Yes.
Instead of just taking it. I mean, yeah, he took it out. You're correct on that. Let me correct myself. You're correct on that. But I'm just saying, taking it and piecing it together and putting his hatred of Han.
Yep.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
See, here's the thing. As much as I love these stories, I'm still finding connections like this.
Yep.
This is great.
Yep. Because I remember weird minutia like that, and I definitely 100% remember it. I thought I remembered it, so I took this book that's sitting in front of me a couple hours ago, and I found the page, and there's the line. So yeah, they do that. And there's some other cool stuff in here, like it's Han and Chewie. That's what's so great about this. Like, you probably don't remember Money Lane. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Remind me on that one.
So here's what Money Lane is. So when Han and Chewie are in the turrets, okay, Money Lane is like a band where both turrets can fire. If you destroy an enemy that's in Money Lane, you get double the points. And then, anytime they have a battle, like it's like a gambling thing. Whoever gets the most points, like, they have to pay each other. That's just so Han and Chewie, just stuff like so creative stuff. And it's science fiction too, because you've got the 3-dimensional aspect of that as well. So yeah, good book, fun book. It felt shorter than the other two, but
I don't know the page count to any of these, but one is that may be the second book does seem a little shorter.
It's right in front of me, 159 pages.
Really?
Yeah, Star's
I
End.
never would have guessed that.
Star's End, 182.
No
It looks
way.
like. Yeah.
No
yeah.
way. I did not. Man, that's almost like short story territory. I didn't realize. Man,
that's how you read it so quick under the tree, Matt.
Yeah, for real. Those books pack a lot of story into such a page count such as that. Because, books today are 300, 400,
Yeah.
The average I think the biggest book was what?
Star by Star. Yep.
Yeah, that was what, 600 or something?
Oh, I don't think it was that long, was it?
It wasn't that long? Okay.
I think it was right over 5.
Okay, but either way, though, the average is 300 to 400 and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, under 200.
Yeah.
Wow, that's almost
159.
Like Scholastic novels. Scholastic novels go 120, 130, 140.
Yep.
Wow.
And they had
so good.
Yeah, they had a swerve at the end where O'Dumman, who was supposed to be like a skip tracer, trying to collect the money, he's actually also an authority agent, and so Han kind of like takes Fiola hostage, but she's kind of in on it because her own superiors screwed her over because she had made a deal with him, like all your past crimes will be forgiven. And something else there, a Victory class Star Destroyer shows up in the atmosphere. So that was the first appearance of a Victory class Star Destroyer in Star Wars. So that's another cool piece of lore. Passenger liner shows up in this one, the Lady of Mindor, which it would show up in other stories and stuff. So
that's true.
Yep.
See, I'm missing a bunch of those references. I really need to reread these again.
Yeah, and then Galandro does show up. He does show up, but there's no duel. So
okay,
because he's working for O'Dumman, for the guy posing as the skip tracer, little otter type alien. So then the third book, not as good in my opinion, Lost Legacy.
Oh, you didn't like this one as much?
Not as much. Nope.
Okay.
I like the cover art by William Schmidt. Another
fantastic
science fiction
in the background
art.
and the.
Yep.
Oh, it's
got
beautiful. I love that one.
Yeah, it's got Zim's war droids lined up on both sides. And now here's what I read somewhere. Maybe you remember this because you know a lot of the real world stuff. I read somewhere 20 years ago, might have been an insider or something, that they originally wanted to put Darth Vader's helmet instead of the crystal skull, but Lucasfilm wouldn't let him.
Yeah, but it looks really cool.
What was the connection? Like, what would have Vader's helmet? There was no connection there. So, yeah, great cover. Again, William Schmidt, another amazing science fiction artist. And yeah, I don't know. The story was just kind of, it wasn't, it almost felt like, I got to write a third book. So I'm going to throw something together. It did have a lot of good character aspects and stuff. Like, they had gotten all that money from Revenge, like the 10,000 credits that Han demanded. Well, immediately they revealed they squandered the money, which I kind of think he was looking at like A New Hope and Empire and thinking Han is the type to squander the money because he got the reward at Yavin, yet he still hasn't paid Jabba off, I think that's kind of what he was going for on the line about squandering the money.
Okay. And see, do you think he had the same restrictions, I was going to say, that L. Neil Smith had? Like he had a very limited time and he was just trying to churn these stories out.
Yep.
Yeah,
very true.
Now that we've heard that from, the Smith family, I'm almost positive that Brian Daley got the same treatment. I'm not making excuses. It could be it could be the worst. I'm just saying that it would make sense why that one may have felt like I just got to get this in the can and move along because I'm running out of time now.
Yes.
Is that a fair? Would that be a fair guess?
Yeah, that would 100% fair. 100% fair. Now
that's what it sounds like.
When you talk about humor, what for me the funniest scene in all three books and in most Star Wars books is where Chewie the pimp has picked up a couple of human girls, right? And Han finds out that Chewie had been pretending to be the captain of the Millennium Falcon, and the girls are like, "Oh, you must be First Mate Han Solo." That scene was great because it's exactly what Chewbacca would do. Exactly.
That's the thing. It is so true to the characters and the relationship that they have.
Yep.
I love it. I love there's a camaraderie with him and Chewie. In fact, this one skips. No, that was AC Crispin. Never mind.
Yeah, she incorporates those into this. Yeah.
AC Crispin incorporates some of the she references, now that I'm thinking about this, she does reference Brian C. Daley's trilogy because she used this as a she read them, I believe Kevin J. Anderson said she took the time and read them all before making her own, and she wanted to make sure to uphold the, of course, tradition of having a great EU story, but she did come to appreciate what Brian C. Daley put together too.
Yep.
And builds some of her books around the events of Brian C. Daley's books.
Yeah, so, I think at the beginning of one of the chapters, it says, "Hey, these books happen in between these chapters," or something like that.
Yeah, so. Yeah, it said something like that because they're just coming back from other previous adventure or something. I believe was mentioned, if I recall, and it's in book 2 of.
I think you're right.
Christians. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah.
And then here's a huge continuity reference. It's the first mention and I guess first appearance and acknowledgement of the Wookiee life debt.
Oh, really?
By name, yes. Because, Han's like, we're not going to help Badger. We're on this resort planet. We're chilling out. And Chewie gets mad and says, he's your friend and you got to help him. And then it literally says in the narrative life debt and stuff. So yeah, the Wookiee life debt, first appearance here. Carillion Bloodstripe by name, first appearance here.
Now I remember that was really cool that he looked at Han Solo's garb and said, let me put some history behind it. Yep. Really cool. Really cool. The Carillion Bloodstripe. Love it.
Yep. And then good stuff. I mean, just tons of lore. And I'm not saying this is a bad book. It had a different feel more than anything than the other two books, I guess I could say.
Okay. All right.
And then Girl of the Week, Hasty this time. And here's what was brilliant about Daley. Like all three of these girls were different and she straight up rejects them and stuff. And she's kind of like this poor, down and out, I guess, kind of like white trash girl. And he goes to try to kiss her, and then she rejects his kiss. She rejects Han Solo's kiss. That was a great scene. And she has this long line about, what kind of future do I have with this, star hopping space bum? What a great line.
Wow. Yeah. I'd forgotten about that. See, she and these characters aren't just throwaway, one and dones. They have a lot of. Here again, you've talked about this. We both talked about this. The EU has so many interesting characters, and everyone was given thought. These ladies were given thought. They just weren't the vixen, the lady in distress. They had character behind them.
Yes,
that's another great thing about these.
Do you remember anything else about this particular book, Matt?
Well, except for the showdown with him and Galandro.
Yeah, tell us about that.
They're looking at they're tracking down. Is this where they're tracking down Zim's treasure, right? It's cache. Yep. And it happens, if I recall, down a corridor or whatnot. And he knows, Han Solo knows that he's no match for Galandro, right? I don't think he feels that he can take him, but he doesn't have a choice when they draw. And there's tension there. I mean, obviously, Han Solo is going to come out in front because this happened pre-Star Wars. But there's still tension there. Like, how's he going to do it? Is Han the quickest draw? What's going to happen? I like Galandro as a character. This is almost like a Wild West, a Western cliche where you have the fastest gun in the West, the guy wearing the black hat. Galandro's wearing the black hat. Come on. But Han Solo wearing the white hat here. But I don't know. And this is interesting because I am looking forward to rereading these. But as you say, it's the weakest one. That's crazy because at first, and again, like I said, all three of them meld together for me. But I remember enjoying it. But again, I will be fair on my reread.
Do you remember how Galandro dies?
It's man.
Automated defense system kills him because it detects Han's blaster. Yeah.
because later on in Young Jedi Knights, he explains that to Anja.
Yep.
What really happened. Yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
Very cool. But there are two. Go ahead, Matt.
No. Again, just another creative way that Han gets out of a situation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like, I think he says in one of these books, I can't remember which one. I think it's the second one. And he's like, Chewie and I always have luck. It's not always good luck, but we always have luck. And sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good. So they have a lot of bad luck and revenge. But then in that case right there, that was good luck kicking in. So, and that's again building on the movies because what does he say when they're on the way to Alderaan? Like, I call it
luck. That's true.
Because he doesn't, the hokey religions and ancient weapons.
I don't believe in all that.
Yeah.
That's right. Hokey religion may save you, but nothing can help you with a good blaster by your side.
Oh, and that's another thing I forgot to mention. I think it's in the first book where Blue Max is controlling the lightsaber training remote, but he has turned up the strength of the blast to like kill. That's freaking great. So he's using the remote as a weapon and stuff.
There's so many creative ideas. It doesn't go, and this is wild because we're talking about a book in the 70s that could have gone the generic route, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But came up with so many unique ideas. I don't know if you mentioned this. Blue Max, the droid, the build. Bullocks has an empty cavity in his chest.
Yep.
Where Blue
Plastron.
Max kind of folds up in there and can come out.
Yep.
It's such a cool idea for a droid. It's a 2-pack,
Do you know what that reminded me of, Matt?
What was that?
Remember on Buck Rogers, the little tiny circle face droid that would go inside Twiggy? Remember that?
Hold on.
I think that's where he got the idea from.
Was it really?
I never read that, but I mean, it's pretty big coincidence, if not. You know what I'm talking about, right? There was like this circle robot that
I remember him because he looked like a little boy, but he had
no, not Twiggy, the one that walked around. Literally a circle, looked like a bowling ball with like lights. Well, Twiggy would pick him up and stuff. So I'm like, is that like what he's doing here?
Huh.
You see that? Did you find a picture of it?
He may have. I'm trying. Okay, I see it.
Yeah.
Huh.
Which is okay,
heck, it was on TV at the time.
Yes.
So even though in the makeup they looked a lot different.
Oh yeah, big time.
Interesting. That is, you know what? You could be right about this, Tim. Dang, yeah. I never
Unfortunately,
realized that.
We can't ask Mr. Daley.
That's a shame, and he died way too short. What was it? Late 90s.
It was, I think, 96 because he actually wrote the Return of the Jedi radio dramatization, as he did the other two. Yeah.
Yeah, and and the radio dramatization. That's another thing people gotta listen to. It's fantastic. And it's sad because Brian Daley, I don't think got to be truly celebrated by Star Wars fans. Because those books got a second life added on to them when they came out. And
Yes.
today, if he'd have lived just 10 more years, I think he would have seen a rejuvenation of his. Obviously, he was selling more novels, but didn't those reprints come out in 96 or was it 94? The mass market reprints by Del Rey. The 3-in-1s. It was somewhere mid 90s, mid late 90s.
I know the one that you were talking about, the combined one. That was
Yeah.
early 90s, the black colored one
Yeah.
that actually says Star Wars on it. Yeah, but I don't know about the re-releases. But doesn't Barnes and Noble have like one of those thick like deluxe editions?
Isn't that the AC Crispin version though?
That's what I don't know. I've never picked it up. I've been walking around Barnes and Noble and I've seen it and stuff, but I haven't actually looked to see is it hers or is it his.
I want to say that's AC Crispin's, but
okay.
but I again could be way mistaken there.
Well, as I look that up, so our listening audience can get the facts, there's two other pretty big things that happened at the end of this novel. The treasure's all garbage.
Yes.
There's no so Han and Chewie take some paintings and stuff that they can use to try to break even. But here's the big part: they part ways with the droids because they stay with that insectoid professor to study all the artifacts. So that was kind of a sad scene,
Right, and he had to let them go because obviously Han Solo doesn't have the droids in the movies.
Yeah.
And doesn't it end with him doing a run for Jabba right before he dumped
that was the next thing. Yep, that's the very last thing. They mention him by name. Like, well, I guess we got to go work for him again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think it's talking about the spice run that he eventually would dump.
Yep. It is. Yeah, that's the implication for sure.
I loved how that connected.
Yeah.
So and now they're off to the next adventure for them, and what an adventure it would turn out to be.
Yep. And you're correct. The Barnes and Noble is AC Crispin's.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And it's bummer,
because I remember when I saw it, I thought it looked beautiful, and I said, "Is it bright?" And I don't mind that's AC Crispin, and some people got it, and if you got it, more power to you. That's a beautiful 3-in-1 omnibus.
Absolutely.
But I wish they would have done one for Brian Daley's because, heck, I wish they'd do one for L. Neil Smith because a 3-in-1 Lando hardback. Yep. I'd buy that at Barnes in a heartbeat.
Yep, that would be sweet.
In a heartbeat because I don't have Star Cave of Thumbaka on hardback. but I would still buy that in a heartbeat because I thought the cover. Those little omnibuses. I got a few of those omnibuses. I got the Sherlock Holmes Adventures, something else, and then Jurassic Park, in Lost World combined. Those are really nice, and I was happy to see a Legends story. It doesn't have the Legends banner on it either, if you noticed.
No, it doesn't.
Omnibus doesn't, and I was like, "Ooh!" And it's pretty good quality hardback. I wish Barnes and Noble would say, "Hey, can we do more of these?"
Yeah.
Some more.
Maybe we should do some ourselves.
Because hardbacks, a 3-in-1. Think about it. We've all wanted. It would still sell. Barnes and Noble gets that 4-in-1 Michael Stackpole X-wing hardback, automatic buy for me.
Oh yeah.
That would day long automatic buy.
Yeah, that would be a big seller, popular item. I have one other item sitting in front of me, and I was so excited when this came out in 93. It is the Han Solo and the Corporate Sector source book from West End Games.
Oh, yeah.
It only covers the first two because he's not in the Corporate Sector in the third book. He's in the Empire. He's in the Tie-in Hegemony. But yeah, great reference book. It has, what the characters look like and the vehicles and how the corporate sector is organized and all that stuff. So I have had it since I originally bought it when it came out in 93, almost 30 years ago. Dang, we're old. But $20, the sticker's still on the front. This thing would probably cost 3 times that in this day.
Oh, nowadays, yeah.
Yeah. Really good hardback and good. It's held up. It's not like I've been rough with it, but Yeah, it's part of the Cardass library. But yeah, really cool to flip through that, and they go into more of the background, and that's what West End was good about, taking you beyond the source material, but also doing it in a respectful way where they didn't make things goofy and not not faithful to the movies and the books and everything else, the comics.
Right.
But yeah, that's the topic, guys. Do you have anything else to add other than everyone should read this and own copies of it?
I agree. I don't underestimate this trilogy. It's fantastic. Give it a try.
Absolutely. Yep. So thanks for listening to the first ever installment of Expanded University short courses. I'll be back in a couple of weeks with another guest. Matt, thank you for being here. Check out his website, theexpandeduniverse.com. Check out Matt Wilkins on YouTube, and check me out at Open-Airlock Policy on YouTube. Thanks for being here, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Always fun.
Space 'em. The Expanded University, imaginative and boundless.